Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a great day because I am. And I just want to welcome you guys out to Give It to the People Live. Now, this is special because we're doing our speaker series that is with She Podcast. So basically, this is the Give It She Podcast speaker series. And I'm getting the opportunity to interview some of the most amazing speakers that are going to be at this conference in June. And without further ado, I want to say it as if I speak Spanish fluently. So I want to say Maribel, right? Like I don't
Muy bien.
I want to say it like I speak it fluently, even though I don't.
Excelente.
Maribel. But you know what? I just love the way that it sounds. And I just want to tell you, I love your podcast. I do. Because
Gracias. Thank you.
I have already learned so much that I did not know. And so I know, we have a lot to talk about. We're going to wrap it up in a good 30 minutes. But I just want you to know that I don't think I realized that because I started going to the beginning. And just from that beginning part, when you were talking about the indigenous people and not speaking Spanish or English. And sometimes I think that we just honestly don't pay attention to things. So I just want to tell you that your podcast has already just shed so much light. And I love the fact that it is just giving information that people would not know otherwise. So I want to say that before we even start. So kudos. Woo, woo, woo.
Well, thank you. And I want to say also that, it's not my podcast. It's not like Maribel's podcast.
Yes.
This is the Pulso podcast is a project of Project Pulso, and we have a whole team and we all work really hard on it. It's a really cool project and we're really proud of the episodes that we put out. And just like you said, we cover the stories, the unheard voices and unheard stories and of the things that you didn't learn in history class. And I think that's what makes this really special. So thank you for listening.
It is because I was just like, you know what? Okay. I never thought about things. And so in certain instincts, you're focused on you're focused on how you grew up, you're focused on where you've traveled to, but sometimes you just really take things for granted. And so like I had a conversation with a lady that I'm going to be working with, and she was saying, one of the reasons why some of the Latino people don't come to certain classes, she said, because on Saturdays, there's a police stop that's right there by one of the colleges that I teach at. And she said, so that is a barrier because if you're undocumented, you want to come to a class, but that police stop. And I'm just like, I'm not even thinking about it. Right.
Oh, that's
So
interesting. Yeah.
I'm telling you, like your podcast was that same kind of light bulb moment for me. And, I say yours because you're a part of it, but that Pulso podcast, like, I really feel like that's something that needs to be a part of somebody's curriculum. I'm gonna put it in
That's so cool that you said that. We actually got a message recently from a history professor, and there are people, who are incorporating some of these episodes into their lessons, and I think that's so cool. But even the better thing about it is that just people like you and I or other people that don't necessarily see it as a curriculum necessity, but they want to learn and they just want to hear some interesting stories. Mm-hmm. And that's what we are doing. That's what we're really passionate about. And what we do really well is tell stories.
Yes.
And it's a storytelling podcast. And that's why it's so cool to work on it. I'm excited to keep going.
Yes, and you definitely need to. But even though I know I wanted to talk about that, of course, we want to talk about your individual thing that's completely yours. And I want to tell you, when I met you in Arizona, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like, I'm glad somebody put this together. So when you talk about the BIPOC Podcast Creators, what even made you decide, let's just start it? Because I would imagine that you could have said, well, listen, I'm just going to focus on the Hispanic, the Latin community. But then you said, no, let's do BIPOC. Let's include and be more inclusive with it. What made you decide to do that?
Well, that's a great question. We originally, my business partner and I met because of the Women of Color podcasters group that Danielle Desir started. And we found a lot of value in being a part of that community. We felt, welcomed, we were comfortable, and we learned a lot together. And so because of that, her and I met. We linked up actually at Podcast Movement in Orlando. We officially met there in 2019. Mm-hmm. And we stayed in touch and we collaborated. We did a couple projects together. We spoke together on the stage. And then one day we decided, there needs to be space for more than just women of color. Like, can we do and we include all genders, and non-binary people. And so that's where the idea started coming together of like, okay, let's do BIPOC podcast creators instead, where there's no specific barrier for any type of gender.
Mhm.
And also where we have more, we put first the people who really need the shine, Black people, indigenous people. We wanted to be very clear about who this group was for and about. And so that's why we chose the term BIPOC, even though you and I know, and everybody who's of color, I think, knows, we don't necessarily go around saying, oh, I'm BIPOC. Like, nobody says that.
No, and you know what? It's like, I wish, honestly, because I'm going to be honest, like, it's so many acronyms in the world. And specifically, even when you deal with business, like, I'm just like, okay, well, you got this one organization and that organization. And people are like, well, what do they do? What does that mean? And so then we have to actually explain what the acronym means to say, okay, and then you need to go to them to get help. So I'm used to a whole bunch of acronyms, and I understand where BIPOC came from. It just always sounded like chicken pot to me. Like, I'm still not like.
A lot of people don't like it. Yeah, no, you're right. A lot of people
like Tupac. Like, I just feel like it's either giving me, it could be a possible disease or it's a rapper. And so, I kind of like, I don't particularly care for it, but I think that it is kind of a good summation if you're trying to come up with an acronym to identify all of these type of people.
Yeah, I think somebody, I don't know who came up with it, but there are arguments on all sides of the thought on this of like, it's good, it's bad, it's ultimately we wanted to be clear about who the people that belonged in this community are, who the space was created for. We just wanted to be very clear, like, if this is a space for you if you are one of these people, right?
Yes.
And that's it. That's really why we chose it. But you're right. The acronym is not necessarily great. It's weird. It sounds weird. A lot of people don't know what it means. We've had people who are not people of color or Black or indigenous try to sign up or try to, join the community because they didn't know. They didn't really understand the acronym.
Because maybe they just thought it was a name.
Yeah, exactly. And so, obviously, like, we understand that there's still a lot of education that needs to happen, but ultimately, for the most part, it's been great and people have gotten the idea. When it comes to everything else, we know that individually we identify as many things, and we have many other ethnicities and things that make up our identities. So I never go around, I don't know about you, but I never say, oh, I'm a BIPOC person. No, I always say I'm a Latina, I'm Mexican. Like, that's how I describe myself, right?
Do you like the term Latinx? Because I've had some people say that they do not like Latinx either. Just like, listen, I'm a
I
Latina.
don't care. To me, it doesn't really matter if someone says Latinx. I don't get offended. I have no feelings for it. But I do prefer, instead of Latinx, I prefer the more accepted term in Spanish, which is Latine. So it's Latin, but with an E at the end. And that is the more accepted term for Spanish-speaking people who cannot pronounce Latinx, because there's no way to say that in Spanish.
Oh, look
without
at
it sounding really weird. And so now people are like, no, Latina makes more sense. So I've actually embraced the term Latina when I'm talking about non-binary people. But I myself, because I do identify as just, a cisgender woman, I go with Latina, and that's fine with me.
Okay, but I will be using Latina because I think that does make more sense, and it does seem a little bit more comprehensive than it's always somebody doing something extra, one another name or something. And it's just like, for all these years, because I'm gonna be honest, like, I tell people I don't like the term African American. I'm just like, I like Black.
Yeah.
I think it's very forward and direct. And I think that sometimes people want to change names up in order to make themselves feel comfortable, or to make in a way, the word less aggressive or less powerful than it is. Yeah. And I just don't even, understand why people do that sometimes. But everything has a motivation behind it,
I feel like everyone I know, like the people around, my husband is Black, my son is Black, a lot of the people who I'm around feel the same way as you do.
Yeah. I mean, we just have so many different names and monikers and everything. And, I mean, I just think sometimes like if the aliens were looking down on us, they'd be like, look at those little weenie. What are they doing? Like they keep doing, just be humans, right? Like
Right. You're doing too much.
aliens
They're,
would definitely say we're doing too much.
I feel like if they are looking in on us, we're their reality TV. Like just our everyday,
We are
everyday news
yes,
cycle.
yes, we are definitely their reality TV, and they tune in for us. But what makes the mission of BIPOC Podcast Creators so important to you? Because I love the idea. I love what Danielle does as far as that. And she said, okay, I'm identify women as the main, focus of her business. But you said, well, listen, what I'm going to do is, and I always look at BIPOC like this, is everything except for white men. I mean, technically, right? And so it's a way to say,
or white women.
well, yeah, that too. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're saying we're focusing on these people, and this is why is it so important to you for that?
Well, that's a good question. We had a lot of conversations about this, Tangia and I, when we started, because initially I was like, what if we just made it? I kind of thought originally, I was like, well, what if we made it a little bit more inviting to like non people of color? Like, would that be bad? And it's not that it would be bad. And in fact, our networking events that are in person and some of our educational events are open to anyone and everybody.
Yes.
You don't have to identify or be a person of color. But then Tangia brought up a really good point, and she said, Maribel, we have to exist in white spaces all of the time.
Yeah.
Constantly, every day we exist in white spaces. Podcasting is a pretty white space. If we don't do something that's very specific where people can feel like themselves and exist in an effortless space, then what are we doing this for? And that's where I was like, yeah, you're right. Like I collaborate, I work with, I partner with a lot of people who are white. Like there are many people in podcasting that are white and that I work with, and it's not that I want to exclude any of them. It's that we need a space that is effortless. That's the best way that I can describe it. Like we just want to have one corner where we can just be effortless, and then that empowers us to go out into the rest of the world and feel more confident and feel more prepared and be more just ourselves, like feel like we can be who we are and we can continue to do the things we want to do.
Yeah. Now, how does that then kind of translate into, listen, okay, I could just do these educational things, but I decided that I'm going to create a community, because, I teach all the time, and me and my husband, we've been having this conversation about scale, right? And so if you're doing things where it's one-on-one, okay, you can't really scale that unless you open it up to more people. And so how has, I guess, creating this community, this membership been, I guess, impactful for you, but then also something where I would assume that you also monetize it. So how does that work for you? And, what made you decide to go this route with it?
So we actually thought originally, we were like, let's do a group, just a free group on Facebook where we invite all the people that we know for now to see if they're interested. And maybe in a year we'll have like 200 people be in the group. Well, in less than 30 days, we had 300 people. And so from there, we were like, okay, there's something here. And 1 month or 2 months after we started, people were asking us for things. They were asking for like, can we get together? Can we do some networking? Can we have, discussions? Are you going to do webinars? Honestly, we started with just this idea of like, let's do the group and see what happens. Okay. And then we said, okay, we need to do more. How can we do this? Obviously, we have to monetize because we cannot afford to just be creating content for free and doing events for free. And so what we started with were webinars. We started doing some monthly webinars, and we kept the cost low so that it was an easier entry for people. And then we started doing some in-person events with sponsors. So that allowed us to invite everybody for free to come to the events. We started doing virtual ones also with sponsors sometimes, or sometimes without. And the sponsorships have been very helpful in allowing us to continue to have a lot of low cost or free events for our community. And then from there, like we have a monthly newsletter,
Mhm.
and we have sponsors who go on the monthly newsletter. So we've actually decided over a year ago that we weren't gonna monetize a membership. That we were gonna, instead of do like a quote membership group where people have to pay to belong to it,
Mhm.
we were just going to figure out a way to have companies and organizations support the work that we do
Mhm.
through sponsorships and partnerships. And that way we could continue to offer a lot of these things for free
Mhm.
or at low cost for our members. And that's what we've been doing. And so far, it's been going pretty well. I
Mhm.
mean, it's been difficult and challenging at times, especially right now. Right
Okay.
now, the corporate wallets are really tight and they don't want to give any money to anybody, I feel like. So it's been a little bit challenging, and that is the challenging part.
Mhm.
But for us, it's also, easier to not have to go collect payments from every single individual who's in the community.
Well, I think first of all, I love it, and I like your logic and the reasoning behind it. But I also think, listen, if you're in a community and it's already free, then if you don't get certain things, you haven't lost anything. Sometimes once people put that dollar attachment to it, then the expectation does go up too, because
Yeah.
okay, well, I paid for this, I expect to get it. But you just have so many connections and friends and all of the different partners and stuff that I'm sure that people still would want to do some stuff, even if it was a training or something like that for free, because and I know people get so tired of this word, but the exposure. And
Mm.
I think oftentimes we have to say, okay, well, there are things that we need to charge for, but there are also things that we need to have be free, because it does increase the likelihood that people will attend. But sometimes when things are free, people are like, oh, I don't know, is it worth it? But I think
Right.
you've built up the energy, you've built up everything to where people know that it's going to be worth it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an important factor. So I mean, and it makes sense, because essentially with my classes, I kind of do exactly the same thing, even though some are in person, things are online. But I'm like, listen, I don't have a problem with it being free as long as I find somebody to pay me,
Yeah,
because this is a
exactly.
business.
At the end of the day, we have to be able to pay ourselves so that we can continue to provide the service that we provide,
Mhm.
and be out here amplifying the voices of people of color in podcasting and beyond. And that is really the mission for us, and what we're focused on. Like, how do we do it? We already know that, like, a lot of our community, I would say estimating around 70% of our community are people who are independent creators,
Mhm.
uh, making their podcast on their own, or maybe with like one other person helping them. And so they're already putting money into things, right?
Yep.
They're not necessarily making a lot of money back. So how do we support them?
Mhm.
They also have to invest. You want to get better at certain things. You're going to have to invest in a webinar or two, or in a
Yep.
masterclass. Like right now, we have a masterclass series going on, and it's something that the community asked for. They
Mhm.
said the webinars are great, but I think we are now ready for like
More
deeper
into
knowledge. Let's go
yes.
deeper. Let's go more in depth, higher level. And we went out and we found the instructors who were right for it. We definitely make sure we pay our instructors,
Mhm.
and we also made sure that we created a curriculum for this masterclass that was valuable to people, that
Mhm.
was actually going to help them. And so they're 2-hour classes instead of like just a 1-hour webinar,
Mhm.
and it's 4 weeks long. uh, and I think people are getting a lot of value from it, and that's what's really important to us. But
Mhm.
yeah, you're right. The problem sometimes with free is that people get used to it. And so then they get really upset when you're like, okay, this event is going to cost money, or this thing's going to cost money. Then they're like, whoa, 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 everything's been free. And then now all of a sudden you want me to pay money. What's going on
Mhm.
here? And it's like,
Mhm.
no, no, no. You want to understand that, like, everything costs money, nothing is free. If you've ever taken economics 101 in college, you know the first rule of econ 101 is there's no such thing as a free lunch.
Mhm.
So everything that you are doing or we're doing out here costs money.
Yes.
Therefore, people need to understand that. And sometimes you have to make sure that your community knows,
Mhm.
hey, this is free, but this is not. And there will be things where you're going to have to invest a little bit, whether
Mhm.
it's time or money. And
And that was
time is money.
That was a great segue because I watched, and I'm talking about this is maybe a year ago or 2 years ago. And I said, oh, she is so smart. You did a video, and it might have been 2 years ago. I don't know. But you were like, this is how much these cameras cost.
Mm.
This is this setup that you see. Like you were showing, this is why you need to pay me, because all of these things have a cost to them. And I think that what happens, and I even had some clients who were like, oh yeah, I want to do a podcast, and you think we should just go ahead and start charging immediately. And I was just like, okay, so listen, the thing is, even if you are providing value, you need somebody to listen to that first. And then are you giving them something that they feel like they want to pay for? So when you look at it from that perspective and you're like, you want to charge, I think that there is an opportunity, if you're not a celebrity, to charge, but you still have to build that up where people understand that value from that perspective. And I see you have your assistant in the room. So tell your assistant, come on the mic. It's fine.
My son.
I know. Yeah.
No, I gotta ask him to leave because he's not acting right.
Okay, he's being a honorary assistant. He's not trying to be cooperative right now. It's okay. It's all right. It's okay.
Sorry about that. It's
real life.
Home office.
That's real life, and I feel you, and I understand. Yes, but so the thing is, when people say, "Okay, I want to monetize," you went after sponsors, which is one way that you can do it. But you also provide so much value with your videos. And can you kind of speak to providing value before asking for money?
Yeah, I probably spent the first year that I went on my own in business, because that was the first time that I actually said, okay, I'm going to do this on my own. Mm-hmm. The first year I spent just creating content of value on social media for people. Educational stuff, quick little videos, informational sessions, even lives. I would do lives with different people. Mm-hmm. I just spent the entire year giving, educating. Mm-hmm. I still do. I still do that. Not as much, not as often, because honestly, I am too busy actually working with clients and working with companies to be able to provide a lot of free content on social media, but I still do, because I do think it's still important. Mm-hmm. And I like it, and I have fun educating the community on the things that I do. So you'll see a lot of behind the scenes stuff. But yes, there is so much power behind establishing your knowledge base. That's what you're doing, essentially, when you're showing people how you work, what it takes to do what you're doing, the behind the scenes, all the work that goes into it, the preparation. You're showing people why you're worth the investment. Yes. And you're also showing people things that they can do on their own if they want to. If they're like, I can't afford your services, but how do I get better at being on camera? How do I get better at on the mic? Or how can I maybe know the right person to hire to help me edit my podcast? Mm-hmm. I've done stuff like that, where it's like, look, here's a blog post about what an editor needs to be able to do, or what a producer needs to be able to do. If you're going to hire one, you need to know these things. Yeah. So I can empower people to actually make good decisions. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to make the decision to hire me. And that's okay, because we can't always please everybody, and we're not a good fit for everybody. But if I can at least help people feel more empowered in their journey to creating better content, I'm happy to do that. And I'm happy to also do it because not only am I establishing a base of, like, Maribel knows what she's talking about, she's an expert. Not only am I doing that, yes, it does help me, but you know what else it does, which I'm proud of? It helps other creators. It helps people who provide other types of services, like graphic designers, editors, sound engineers, animators, all the other people that work with me that help my projects become a reality. Yeah. It helps them too, because then their customers or other people can understand why they have to charge for their work and why it's not always cheap.
Yes. Yes. And that to me makes sense. So this is a selfish question that I'm getting ready to ask, because when I said, one of the things with this series was I didn't just want to do it just to be like, hey, you're speaking, which is great, right? Because it's on the website. But I wanted to ask some questions that I felt like would improve me personally, in the brand that we have. What do you use for your newsletter? What service do you use?
Oh, that's a great question.
I need to know
And we
this. I'm just
actually
like, it's so good.
we're actually gonna be sharing an affiliate link soon. So
Okay.
I'll tell you, it's ConvertKit, and if you or anybody you know want to use that, please hit me up because we'd
Okay.
like to share our affiliate link with you.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's cool. And that's one of the things where I said, I'm always interested because people do things differently. They use different platforms. And one of the things that I've been looking at is, monetizing the newsletter. Do I feel like I have the energy and the time to put in the effort? And you are always giving so much value in the newsletter. And I'm like, oh, let me click that. Oh, let me find out about that, because I'm just like a lifelong learner. I need to absorb those things. So it's always interesting to see, what people are using, and how it looks visually, how you feel once you get it. And so that was my little selfish question to ask. So
No, it's not selfish. You're helping other people too.
yes, definitely. So if people said, listen, Maribel, why should I come to your session at She Podcast? What would be your main reason for people to come to your session?
Well, I think the main reason will be that we always, and that's Tangia and I, because we're speaking together, we
Yes.
always bring something powerful to the table. And there's always a reason to leave there feeling empowered and more knowledgeable about something. We are not telling you yet what that's going to be. It's
Yeah,
going to
because
be a
I was going to
surprise.
be like, oh, what is your session? Right?
You're
Like
going to have to tune into the website to find out.
I'm going to be here.
Got to drive that website traffic.
Yes.
But no, you will always feel empowered. You will always feel like you got something out of that session, because that is the one thing that I cannot stand when I go to conferences and I walk into a session and I sit there for 30, 40 minutes and I walk out of there like, what the fuck did I just do? Why did I come here? What just really? I just sat here and heard the speaker talk about themselves and how great they are and how awesome their project is and how amazing people around them are. That's why I came. That's not why you come to a session. You
I
want to
know.
learn something. And I hate it when people don't leave enough time for Q&A at the end. So we
Yes.
always try to make sure we have at least 5, 6, 7 minutes for Q&A, because there are always questions. And if you
Yes.
don't open it up to questions, then people are not really learning.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, the thing is, I love to give value, and I feel like that's more valuable. I think that a lot of people now want to be speakers because it sounds good and it makes them look
Mm.
good. And I'm just like, listening to other people's webinars and stuff. And my husband is so super critical now because he's just like, well, it wasn't as good as yours. Well, they talked too much about this. Why did they even include that? They should have spent more time on this. And it's like, it's such a good feeling when he's just like, yours are really awesome. But I try to pack value in. So I tell people, listen, if it's from 6 to 7, I have 6 to 7 content. And I include the part in between for people to ask questions. And then I still leave a little bit at the end too. But it's just like, you might not understand something. And that one question, that's the light bulb moment. Or that one question, oh, shoot, now I can go do something different. Or I really needed to know that. And so I love that part because to me, it's an impactful thing. So tell people where they can find you online.
You can find me at Maribel_QS on all the social media platforms. You can also find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on my website at maribelqs.com.
Mm-hmm. And then BIPOC, see them.
Yes, BIPOC Podcast Creators.
Podcast creators. Now
Yes,
I'm like totally tongue-tied.
I know. That's why it's hard for some people. No, you can find our community of podcast creators online at BIPOCpodcastcreators.com. It is a free networking community. You can join. Just click on the Join Now button and it'll take you to the Facebook group where you can access that community there. Or if you don't want to mess with Facebook, which is totally cool, I get it, you can sign up for our newsletter and our email list and you'll get all of the information there as well. So anytime we have an event or a webinar or an education session, or we're doing anything cool that you want to be a part of, you'll find out and you'll get the latest news and hot topics in podcasting every month.
Yes, I love that. That's really my favorite thing is being able to learn about something new. That turn on like, oh, I didn't even know that existed, or oh, they're offering this. And so I think that that's an important factor. So if you can leave the people with one final like message, word, motivation or something, what would that be?
I would say don't stop asking yourself why. That's my thing this year. Like, I decided that this year I was going to ask myself why whenever I was going to make a decision that
Mhm.
affected my life,
Mhm.
instead of just making a decision and just running with it because I think that that's what people want me to do. Because I think we spend a lot of time just reacting instead of questioning why we want to do something or why we're going to take action on something. So don't stop asking yourself why. It's going to save you a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of heartache, I think, at the end of the day.
Oh my God, I love that. Okay, that was awesome, guys. So we don't even need to say anything else aside from go to her session when you get to She Podcast. And if you cannot make it to She Podcast, it's okay because you can join the group, just like she told you. You can join the newsletter, and then this way you'll still get access to Maribel in some form of fashion. And follow her on social media, please, because she's awesome sauce. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on today. I appreciate your time. Tell your assistant in the background he can get a snack later on or something like that. And I just appreciate this because this was a really great session. So if you're watching this on the replay, feel free. You can still leave questions. You can still leave comments. And for everybody else, make sure that you always show up and show out and continue to give it to the people. Bye, guys.
Bye.